Good morning, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Today's video is in response to a request I received from a gentleman on the Night Sky Enterprises Facebook page. He messaged me there and asked me if I would speak a little bit about the sorts of influences and preferences that go into the way that I prepare for trips and clean up and refit afterwards. Yes, sir, I absolutely will speak to that because, in my opinion, trip preparation and refitting are the two most essential parts of any trip, regardless of the destination or duration. I'll say that because proper preparation and refitting can save your life, whereas half-assing it can get you killed. If you don't have what you think you have, if it doesn't work the way you think it'll work, you can be setting yourself up to die slowly and horribly in a place where no one will ever find your body, and your loved ones will spend the rest of their lives wondering what in the hell happened to you. So, with that dire, dark message right up front out of the way, I'll get off my soapbox and do my best to answer your question. But to answer it properly, to give it some context, we've got to go back in time to the late 90s when I had the honor and privilege of serving with Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 75th Airborne Ranger Regiment in Savannah, Georgia. I learned so many things. I couldn't calculate how many things I've learned during those years that impact my life on a daily basis now. But among those, there are four lessons I think have direct pertinence to the question at hand in terms of my gear. The first lesson is the importance of equipment layouts and inspections. Now, back in the day, I absolutely hated the accountability and serviceability inspections. And if I'm honest, I hate them just as much, if not more so today, but I do them anyway. Before I take the first trip of a new season, I empty the bag, I inspect the bag, I inspect all the gear, I inventory it, I repack it, and I get the pack and all my gear 100% good to go. I verify that I have what I think I have and that it works how I think that it works. And then I redo that same layout and that same inspection after every single trip of the season. I have a checklist and everything. And some people say, man, that's a little OCD. Yeah, and maybe you're right. But the thing of it is most of my trips are solo trips, and I'm also a solo packer. There's no one here to double check my gear. I have to double check myself. So I use this methodical, concise, diligent, disciplined approach with the checklist because it's the only way I can be 100% confident that I have what I think I have and that it works how I think that it does. So, I lay out every little single piece of gear, down to the needles in my sew kit, the dental floss in my hygiene kit. It all gets laid out on a table where I can see it, I can touch it, I can clean it if it needs cleaned, I can restock, refuel, refit, repair, reload, recharge, whatever it needs to be 100% serviceable, and I test it. And only after I've seen it, touched it, cleaned it, fixed it, tested it, then it gets a check in the good to go column on my checklist. And after everything on the table is good to go, I go back through and I very methodically, concisely, diligently put everything in the table back exactly where it goes in the pack. Then it gets checked off as being packed on the list. When it's all said and done, the pack's good to go. I'm ready for the next trip. So that's the preparation standpoint before a trip. The second thing from the Rangers is this idea. Well, they used to say that you should train how you want to fight because you'll fight how you trained. Well, thankfully these days I don't have to do a lot of fighting. So I rephrase that lesson to say I train how I want to move because I'm going to move how I trained. I see every trip as a training opportunity. I'm in the process of losing weight and gaining strength. I'm improving myself. And one of the ways I do that is by carrying more weight than I need. At this point, I have a pretty good idea of how much food, water, and gear I'm going to need. I know exactly what I need for a trip, but I take more. I take more tools that I'm going to need. I take more food. I take more of everything. And I know that probably makes some of the ultralight packers cringe, but I'm not an ultralight packer. I am in the business of improving myself. I'm in the business of conditioning myself to move further and faster with heavier gear. So I have what I consider the hardest trip scenario and the packing list for what I would consider the hardest trip imaginable that I would take. And I take that gear every time, even though it is overkill for almost all of the trips that I take on a season. Because when that day comes, when it comes time that I have to take that hard trip, I don't want to find out on that day that I'm not strong enough or that I don't have the endurance to finish. I want to take the first step of that trip knowing that I have the endurance to take the last step. I want to know that I can do it. I have a lot of goals and a lot of objectives for my trips, but chief among them is becoming better, becoming stronger. So I train how I want to move. The third lesson from the Rangers that tie into this, it comes from the last clause of the fourth paragraph of the Ranger Creed, where it states, "My care of equipment shall set the example for others to follow." Now, most of my trips are solo excursions. I only have myself and my gear that I can depend on. And gear will not take care of you if you don't take care of it. That's why the refitting and repacking are so important. When I get back from a trip, the first thing I do is I take care of me. I take a shower, I grab a bite to eat. I might even grab a dose of caffeine and take a little power nap, depending on how tired I am, because I've been working on a sleep and calorie deficit for days at that point, and I need a little bit of a recharge so I can be at my best. And then once I've done that, my gear is my first priority. If I know I've got a tarp that's soaked, I'll pull it out of the pack and I'll hang it up to start drying. If I know I've got a firearm or other mechanically complicated piece of equipment that's damp and wet and is going to rust or corrode, I pull that out, I strip it down and oil it down. Now, we all have real life considerations. As soon as you get back from a trip, real life it's like a flooding into a vacuum. You've got your day job, you've got family obligations, animals, property, house, vehicle, all of these things. Most people cannot avoid that, myself included. So what I'm saying is, once I get back, every minute of free time I have for myself, it all is devoted and dedicated to my gear. I don't watch TV, I don't play video games, I don't dick around on Facebook, I don't call my mom, I don't visit friends, I don't do anything that's not directly relevant to cleaning up and refitting my gear. My goal is from the time I get back from a trip to be completely repacked, cleaned up, ready to go out again at a minimum of 3 days after I get back. I can usually do it in 2 if the weather's good enough for everything to dry. Then the fourth lesson, I save for last because it's the most important. It has bearing directly on the other 3, as well as pretty much every other aspect of my life. And that lesson is that you should always do the hard right over the easy wrong. Now, my dad taught me this lesson too. The Rangers was not the first place I heard it, but the Rangers stated it in a way that was simpler to say and simpler to understand. And that's just, anytime you're faced with a decision, you don't know for sure which way is right or which way is the least wrong way. Do the hard thing. Do the thing that you don't want to do. Do the thing that you wish you didn't have to do. Do the thing that you'd almost rather die than do. Do that thing. More often than not, you'll be right, or the least wrong, anyway. And that holds true with my gear as well. It would be so easy to come home after a trip. I'm worn out, I'm tired, I stink, I'm starving. It'd be so easy just to grab a shower, plop my ass down on the couch with a pizza, watch some Netflix, while the pack stays in the truck or on the porch or in the garage, and it just slowly gets funkier till I get around to doing something with it. I never leave that pack until I get around to it. As soon as I'm in good enough shape to do the work, the pack is the first thing. It'd be easy to unpack it in pieces or scatter the gear out among other packs, day packs. It'd be easy to hang stuff up in the garage, leave stuff in the truck. When I get undressed from the camping trip, it'd be so easy to leave the stuff that I wear and carry in my pockets, on the nightstand, in the laundry room, in the truck, in the garage. I can have stuff scattered all over hell's creation. It'd be easy to do. Entropy and chaos, in my opinion, are the default states of the universe. It takes work and effort and diligence to impose order and maintain and keep order. And that's basically what I'm doing with the packing and the amassing of the gear. I am imposing order upon the universe. In one little small pocket of the universe, I'm using my body, the power of my body, the will of my mind, to impose a little bit of order on one little piece of the universe, such that when I go camping, I am as prepared as possible to survive and come back home to the people who love me and need me to exist. And I do that by doing the hard right over the easy wrong. Now, that being said, in the years since I've left the Rangers, I have softened a bit. I have learned to recognize the value of making the hard thing less hard to do. Why does it have to be hard? If the right thing doesn't have to be difficult, why make it difficult? Set yourself up for success. That's kind of my new motto. And to that end, in terms of equipment refitting and repair, I've set up a space in my house to help me do that. I'm going to flip this camera around so you can see what I'm talking about. So what we have here is the space that I've put together in my house from late spring to early fall for my camping excursions and backpacking trips. We've got a bunch of old carpet on the floor here. This can take gobs of molten paracord, dead leaves, mud, toe jam, boogers, whatever hells I unleash upon this carpet during my cleanup phase. That's what it's for. It's old, it's stained, it's nasty, but it takes the damage, and then one of these days I will replace it with something nicer. But for now, it's exactly what I need for the cleanup. This space also has a lot of good natural light. I've got these beams where I can hang sleeping bags and tarps if they need to air out and dry out, but it's just too humid or rainy and nasty outside to do it. I've got the pack laid out here. It gets inspected for serviceability, holes, broken straps, broken buckles, that sort of thing. If it needs cleaned, I soak it in the utility sink in the laundry room and let it dry and air out. I've got all my food laid out here. The purpose of this layout is so that I can very quickly and easily access everything I need for a trip. I come over here with a little shopping list and I just grab stuff out of the boxes like I'm at a grocery store, but it's boxes instead of shelves. I can see how much of it I have, and when I'm prepping for a trip, if I see I'm running low on something, I make a note, and ordering replacements becomes part of the refitting process when I get back. I got a crane scale so I can see how much my pack weighs. I've got all the stuff that goes on my body or in my pockets. And as I mentioned before, it's very easy for this stuff to get scattered all over the house. But I make a point to gather it all up and put it right here so I don't have to look for it later. I've got all the gear that goes into the pack, things that need replenished after a trip, chem lights, batteries, hygiene items, that sort of stuff. I've got spare gear, different types of water filters I take on various trips. I got a bunch of gear that goes into the repair and modification of my gear, Velcro, cordage, that sort of thing. And then all this stuff on these shelves is additional gear. I call it auxiliary gear. That's not part of the worst case, or I should say, again, hardest trip scenario. But say, for instance, I go on a group trip. I might take this e-tool so I can dig a bigger latrine hole for a group. Or I might take this collapsible stool or Kelly kettle, things that were more accommodating to a group environment. I may take additional tools. I don't normally take a machete, but if I'm going into an area where I know I need to clear out some brush, a machete's better to use than an axe. I might take a machete. If I'm going to be clearing a lot of big wood, I might take that larger bow saw instead of my smaller hand saw, and so on and so forth. But the point is, it's all laid out right here. I don't have to look for it in the garage. I don't have to look for it in the truck. I don't have to dig through closets. Everything I could possibly need is right here and ready to be added to the layout. Speaking of the layouts, I've got all of my gear laid out in my accountability and serviceability inspection layout. I'm not going to go through what all this stuff is today. We can do that on another video later. But the point is, it's all laid out right here where I can see it. I can touch it. If need be, I can test it. And everything gets processed. There's the clipboard with the checklist I was telling you about. I got the good to go column, I got the packed column, I got what it is, I got where it goes. After it's all packed up, when I'm leaving for a trip, I've got a separate checklist. This is just daily house stuff. Are the doors locked, or the windows shut, is the oven off, or the cat's fed? I go through that before every trip, just so it's not on my mind. I don't have to get 4 miles out in the woods and wonder if I left the oven on. I know it's off because I checked it off the list. When it's all said and done, all of this stuff gets packed into this pack. That pack gets hung up on this little steampunk backpack stand I made a few years ago. And except for food and water, I am good to go. When the next trip comes up, I plus up the food and water, and into the woods I go. So, sir, I hope that answers your question. I'm going to wrap this video up because it's running a little bit long. If I didn't answer what you were asking me, then please message me on Facebook or let me know in the comments under here. Anyone else has seen this video, if you have comments or questions about anything I've discussed today, please let me know in the comments below. We'll talk about it down there. Or if it's one of those types of things that's easier to show than to tell, I'll do another video in response to the questions I get in the comments. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope maybe you learned something worth knowing. And I will catch you next time.